take this interview further, and we're joined by my broadband chief editor, Jan Vermeulen. Very good morning to you, Jan. On estimation, how much did this outage cost Zuckerberg?
Good morning. Yes, it's difficult to know exactly how much this cost Facebook. Well, it cost Zuckerberg himself $7 billion, around 105 billion rand, temporarily as the stock price of Facebook plunged, his own personal net worth taking a beating as a result of everything that's happened, not just the outage, but there's a lot happening around Facebook right now. There's a whistleblower that's come forward and did an interview on 60 Minutes in the United States. 60 Minutes is kind of like South Africa's version of Carte Blanche. And this whistleblower, among the allegations were that Facebook knows full well the negative impact it has on teenage girls in Instagram in terms of their body image and so on, and even going so far as to say that Facebook is profiting off of propagating hate over the platform, pointing to what's happened in Myanmar recently. So all of these things kind of heap on top of one another and cause the Facebook share price to take a plunge. The impact on Facebook itself must have been in the hundreds of millions, or at least tens of millions, potentially hundreds of millions, with respect to lost revenue because of this outage.
In the course of your work, you probably do some research, and that point that the whistleblower made about Myanmar, what kind of impact does Facebook have on world affairs and politics and how governments are run? Yes,
it's pretty well established that Facebook has a tremendous impact, and is, because of its reach, what ends up happening is that governments themselves weaponize Facebook without Facebook even realizing what's going on. And so Facebook now has teams in place to better understand this and to try and guard against it. But it still doesn't, according to this whistleblower, is not doing a good enough job at that. And so, for example, we had the infamous Cambridge Analytica scandal, which was linked to the presidential campaigns of Donald Trump and the Brexit campaign. And so how Facebook and the data that Facebook gathers on its users is weaponized to essentially manipulate people in one way or another. So it's not that different from what clandestine services around the world have always done, whether it's the CIA or the old KGB, to try and get their way in a particular region on the planet, whether it's to destabilize a government, install a ruler that they like. These clandestine services around the world, including the ones in China, that do this all the time. It's just now that they have a tool in Facebook to help them achieve those ends. And so, yeah, we know from reports and research that has been conducted that Facebook and other social media platforms, but Facebook being the biggest, is the biggest contributor to that, is weaponized in a way that mass media hasn't been weaponized before.
Yeah, and just going back to that question about the cost of this to the company, Bloomberg reported that stocks were down by 5% on Monday and 15% down compared to mid-September. What does this mean?
Yeah, it's that's the market punishing Facebook for everything that's been happening in recent weeks. So it's still about $50 up year on year. So folks who bought Facebook shares a year ago are still smiling, even though they would have been smiling wider if it wasn't for a 15% decrease. But yes, this is just the Facebook stock price, and it's the market punishing Facebook, and it shows a lack of investor confidence in Facebook. The markets are incredibly sentiment driven, and so with all the negative news building against Facebook, from the Instagram report on its impact on teenage girls, to this whistleblower coming forward with the tremendous social impact that Facebook has all over the world, and now the outage, all these things just mount, they cascade on top of one another to the point that, yes, the Facebook share price has seen a dip of 15% since mid-September.
There's also the question of tech startups that are always hoping to find some loopholes and get market share of the global presence of Facebook. What are they planning at the moment? How are they interpreting this event?
Yeah, sure. So what we're seeing from Facebook's competitors is that they are definitely capitalizing on everything that's happened. So Twitter saw a rush of users last night as people were trying to find out what's going on and what's caused the outage. And then we've seen Signal and Telegram, though I hesitate to call any of these platforms startups at this stage. They're quite established businesses, but they are certainly reaping the benefits of Facebook stumbling here with folks who were unable to communicate over WhatsApp yesterday, switching to Telegram and Signal yesterday to try and get a hold of friends and family.
Is this event big enough to get users moving away from Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram?
This single event, I don't think is big enough. Facebook is incredibly entrenched. What we saw in 2010 or 2011 with BlackBerry Messenger here in South Africa, I don't know how many people remember that, is that it took multiple events and multiple frustrations to eventually get people to switch entirely away from BBM and just use WhatsApp. And if Facebook keeps stumbling, and the next few weeks and the next couple of months even are going to be critical for Facebook in that regard, if it experiences multiple outages in a row, or the negative sentiment towards the platform builds even further. So, for example, people are concerned about their private data being shared between WhatsApp and Facebook. They don't want that, and Facebook is doing everything in its power to assure people that it's not going to be doing that. If any of that negative sentiment builds, or if the network goes down again, then we could see a mass migration from Facebook services, whether it's Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, over to alternative platforms. But as things stand now, as long as Facebook is able to stabilize its network and the negative sentiment, kind of address the negativity towards the platform, it's not going to cause a mass migration. Though what we will see happen, I think, is more people experimenting with these alternative platforms. And so a couple of more missteps by Facebook and people will just be ready to jump ship. So it's a critical time for Facebook.
Jan Vermeulen is the chief editor for My Broadband, and thank you so much for making the time to speak to us this morning.
It's my pleasure. Have a great morning.